Hi, my name is Andrea Sella. I'm a chemist at UCL, and I've been presenting science to the public for over 20 years. With me is my friend, Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony Conigliaro of Drink Factory and 69 Cobalt Grow, and today we're going to play with some bubbles.
I see you're well protected there. When we pour champagne into a glass, the first thing we have to do is to actually look at it. So the really striking thing here is how different these three glasses look. I mean, I really quite like this flute here with those gentle streams, but look at that. What do you think?
Looks like a soda pop.
Yeah, it really does look like soda. I mean, the bubbles are so much bigger, and then they're actually sticking to the walls of the glass. First of all, how do you make a bubble? I mean, in order to make a bubble, what you have to do is to actually separate the water, to make space for the gas inside. The smaller the bubble, the bigger the pressure you need. One of the interesting things is the sound that bubbles make. And we're all familiar with that kind of psh sound, but the interesting thing is whether we can actually hear a single bubble. And what I've got here is a glass tube which contains a slightly viscous liquid. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shake it. And so this beautiful little plink sound is the sound of a single bubble being formed and then collapsing. But the interesting thing is that if we take a really porous material, like a little chip from a flower pot, and we drop it into a glass of champagne, immediately you get this huge plume of bubbles coming up. You almost start to get a head up at the top.
And there's something very similar when we make a champagne cocktail and we put a sugar cube to aggravate the bubbles.
Well, a sugar cube would work extremely well because it consists of compacted little crystals with air gaps in between them. And so each one of those air gaps is going to act as a starting point for the bubbles.
What we're going to do is use a sugar cube to aggravate the champagne. What we're doing now is putting a rose essence on it that we've created ourselves. So it's like a food grade perfume.
And you're going to put that into the actual champagne.
Yeah, and then top that.
And so there you get a real foamy head when you put it in now.
Would you like a rose?
Well, if I could just have a sniff. Wow, there's this incredible perfume on top. And then strangely, the taste you get in the champagne itself is really quite different.
Yeah.
But what I want to know is whether it's actually possible to stop the bubbles.
There is a way that I could show you, and that's using a suspension gel, and then we can also kind of flavour those bubbles.
You are the master.
So this is the suspension drink I was talking about, where the bubbles are actually suspended inside the drink.
This is quite amazing that the bubbles have actually stopped. How do you achieve that?
What we do is we put an aroma into the canister, we then put CO2, and then very, very slowly we kind of inject the bubbles into the gelatine, but they have to be very small.
So the secret is to have a kind of gel in there. And what they consist of is a kind of tangle of very, very long molecules. And what they're able to do is to kind of hold or structure, in a sense, the water, which goes from being the usual runny stuff to being this much more kind of viscous, gloopy thing, which is able to hold those bubbles. How crucial is the bubble size?
Very, because if they're too big, then they kind of float to the top, and the idea is that we just have them suspended so that when you drink the drink, you get the flavours of the drink itself, but then you get these little explosions, bubble explosions in your mouth.
What this really shows is the way in which you can use bubbles to your advantage. And by combining a little bit of science with some real creativity, I think you can become very, very playful with your drinks and take drinks to another level.